On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk twist the simple smart home light bulb speaker. We talk about the HTSA and their electing of new directors, but more importantly, how buying groups impact integrators. Last but certainly not least, we talk about Snap AV and their continued buying streak, as this past week they picked up Autonomic, expanding their reach into distributed audio. All this and more on ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 45. Seriously, snap!
This is ResiWeek.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. Today, I am pleased to be joined by Jeremy Glowacki. He is the editor of Residential Systems. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, and I must say this is my first time on with the new platform, and it seems to be really nicely syncing. I can see you talk, and your voice and mouth are matching up nicely.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
It's crazy how that works when you don't have to use the Googles. Not that we don't like the Googles.
Okay, on the Googles?
I wasn't. I just said when you're not using the Googles, when you're using Zoom, brought to you by Advanced AV, you'll love it. Like that little plug. I really hope he's listening to this episode. The guy you just heard is my good friend, Tim Albright. He is the founder of AVNation.tv. How are you?
I am well. 12 days till Rogue One.
Oh, yes, the movie. Yes, it is.
Oh, yes.
All I got to say.
Yeah. All right, let's jump right in. Gentlemen, this past week, there was more exciting news out of Snap AV. It turns around that they were not going to rest on their laurels after their last purchase. They were going to keep buying companies. And as you can see in this article, they went ahead and bought Autonomic, the number one brand of media servers among high-revenue integrators. This is a bit of a big move, if I can say so, for Snap, who is moving into distributed audio, and not only just any distributed audio, but Autonomic, who has been known for quite a while as probably the number one standalone distributed audio, high-end audio company. Jeremy, is this Snap just continuing to try and dominate the market and go after every little niche that it does not already have? Or is this them picking up a company that really fits their true core system?
Well, I spoke to the folks at Snap AV on both their recent acquisitions. They're 2 weeks ago, I believe, or 3 weeks ago, they acquired Vigilant, which is that security brand that is complementary to their already existing security products. And what they seem to be going back to every time, or both times I've spoken to them, is the Sunbright TV acquisition a year ago. And I think that one kind of, I don't know for a fact how that played out, but it seems like perhaps that one was an opportunity they couldn't refuse. It was a situation that was sort of presented to them. They jumped on it back then, and it was a proof of concept that they now can acquire companies and integrate them very successfully into their ecosystem. And instead of creating products and badging them for their own, creating their own product lines, which is a challenge for any company, they can get a whole cloth product in their arsenal in a category that they don't have already represented. And this is a category was missing from their lineup, was presented as an opportunity. They must have good cash on hand to be able to make this kind of a purchase. But I don't know if it's going to continue. There's how many more products you could look and see what are they missing. I haven't really analyzed that, but I think if the opportunity affords that, they've decided this is a successful way of growing their capabilities for sure, and much easier than trying to create their own product from scratch.
Very true. Tim, as this comes to fruition and as this plays out over the next couple of months, when we start to see this being available from Snap directly, is this something that, it's obviously going to affect dealers in a couple of ways. If you currently buy from Snap, or for us through their distributor up here, it's going to give you access to Autonomic, which you may or may not have had before, which, again, gives you that ability to bring a true wired solution at a price point that hits most of the wireless systems that are out there. They've got a system that goes up against the Big S system fairly effectively in a wired traditional platform. What does this mean to those integrators who are now looking at it saying, hey, I can now add Autonomic to my repertoire?
Well, it's a great help for them. And that's one of the things that we and Jeremy's talked to integrators as well over the last 2 years, right? With all these different M&As and mergers and acquisitions about getting access to new product. This one specifically, Autonomics is a really good company. They've got a long track record. Their products are pretty solid. And it's going to give folks who are currently in the Snap AV ecosystem, if you didn't have access to Autonomic, you can make the argument that there's not a whole lot of them out there. But if you didn't, it's going to give you access and an introduction to their product line. What it does, though, is it takes folks who maybe stagnant, or you get caught in a rut of using the same product over and over again, and it gives you new eyes and it maybe a new perspective on a product that you either haven't had the chance to use yet, or just haven't given it a chance. And it gives you a good reason to try it out because, hey, suddenly I have access to it. What the heck? Let's try it. Either bring it in-house in our own little test lab, or, try out on a job.
Now, one thing that I think kind of gets overlooked when these purchases come through is currently, Autonomic was sold through independent reps and rep distributors. What does this mean for them, especially if this was one of their primary brands?
Sorry? There are, I don't mean to be flip. This is people's business.
That sounded pretty flip.
It was a little flip. I didn't mean to be. But you're going to have contracts that you have to honor through a certain amount of time. Once those contracts are up, though, there is a better than chance than not that they will not be renewed. Simply because it's a different, Snap AV has a different business model than going through rep firms. One thing that I looked at in looking up this story this weekend, Snap AV is not a publicly held company. It's a privately held LLC. So they're looking to expand their base and their offerings, like Jeremy said, but not necessarily through developing their own products. They're finding products that fill a niche, that fill a need that they have, and adding it to their stable. It's not like we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Harman and Samsung. You increase shareholder value, you keep shareholders excited by growing through acquisition, right? The same talk we had about AVI SPL and picking up the group out of the West Coast. You increase shareholder value and you grow through acquisition. This is not that necessarily. This is growing through acquisition, but it's not necessarily for the shareholders. It's for the other end of that. It's for your clientele. It's for your dealers, the folks who are looking to you for solutions. Snap AV is taking a step back, it looks like, and saying, okay, there are some areas that we don't necessarily have a solution for. Let's go get it, right? And Jeremy's right. It's a lot easier. It's a lot faster to go out and get a company that's already doing it well, purchasing them, and adding them to your stable rather than doing the R&D and developing it on your own.
Well, and especially when you look at the fact that by doing this, they're just bringing more options to their dealer base. They're expanding that dealer base. And Jeremy, one of the things that I found very interesting about this is because they already have their smart home as a service platform and Autonomic has its, once they merge that, is that going to, that really should just be a beneficial aspect to the sale for the dealer? Because again, once these two clouds come together, you instantly have all of this available through the app without the dealer, like myself, having to program something and design an interface.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, everyone uses Snap AV's ordering platform, their portal, as the model for how things should be done in the future in this business. Granted, you take the rep out of the equation, that's bad for certain people's livelihoods, but it's the process of ordering alone is just such a benefit for Snap AV dealers that I think that this is going to become just a more organic process to include in jobs. And then on the Autonomics side, they said to me that they're looking to do new things, and this is basically giving them more money to work with to create new products, and they're keeping that team together, at least for now. Mergers and acquisitions, it's always a hard thing, you try to blend these companies together and there's always some kind of a conflict, and the entrepreneur is usually the first person out the door, and you lose the personality of that company. So far, it looks like they are trying to keep these companies intact and not just homogenize it into one place. They're keeping their location and keeping their complete team, and it's only a 22-person company. It's not a huge company that they're adding. So that's to go beyond what your question was, but that's the concern I have with all of these in this industry. It's just becoming this big homogenized being that doesn't have any identity that it used to have.
Right.
I don't think hopefully that's not going to happen here.
Very good. Let's move on to, this comes to us from Residential Systems. HTSA, the board is welcoming a fresh perspective. Andrea Reiner and Terrence Murray are joining the board of directors. They're both fairly well known in the industry and have some extensive backgrounds in sales and marketing, et cetera. Gentlemen, obviously, the boards of these buying groups change over time fairly consistently. But what I really want to talk about looking at this is essentially the pros and cons of some of these buying groups. And if we see a point when, there was a time a couple years ago when buying groups seemed to be all the rage. And if you weren't in a buying group, what were you thinking? What were you doing with your business? Jeremy, is that still the feeling among most integrators? Or is it something where they're over time, moving away from that and maybe, for example, becoming a big Snap AV dealer versus working within this large buying group?
I think it depends, like anything. I think that the folks that are in buying groups are very passionate about the return on investment that they get from them. The discounts are part of it, but that's always downplayed when I talk to the executive directors of these groups. It's the education part of it, and it's the face-to-face time with peers that are not in competitive markets. So whether this is the end-all be-all, that's for the individual company to decide. There's more people that are not in buying groups in this industry than are in them. I would say a lot of the top integration companies happen to be in buying groups. I don't know if that's a result of them being in the buying group or that they, kind of cherry pick the best of the best to be in them, but I do believe that the fact that they can get together, they can share best practices, they can learn from experts, they can get services that groups like CEDIA are offering, but it's a more targeted, specific group plan that they can learn more about because they have to attend these meetings, they have to go through the education. I mean, it's basically a requirement of membership that you attend these meetings. So you're not missing out on all these opportunities. Whereas CEDIA, you kind of have to pick and choose what you participate in. So I think that there's a lot of talk about the education part of it. And I think that's it's never a bad thing to get more education and to have more peer-to-peer time.
No, definitely not. Tim, when looking at a buying group to maybe become a part of, is, what Jeremy said, is that going to be the primary driver for most of these integrators as they're looking or potentially considering becoming part of a buying group? Is it going to be the education with all the avenues that are out there for education? Is it going to be the discounts? Is it going to be the peer-to-peer stuff? In your mind, what is the big push that drives integrators into these groups?
Well, it's actually the education from the peer-to-peer, right? And Jeremy hit on something very important. There are a lot of top 25, top 50 integrators in the States that are a part of these groups. Sitting down at the table or having a cup of coffee or having a drink with some of these folks is never a bad thing. Learning from the best is never a bad thing. So picking their brain and letting them talk, speak into you and in your business is always, something beneficial. What helps foster that is the regionalization, right? Mm-hmm. You take HTSA, you take PSNI, you take some of these others. They're regionalized. You don't have two competing integrators in the same space, in the same market. So folks are typically a lot more free, a lot more open about, some of their tricks or some of their wins and their losses. Hey, this is what happened when we did this, and this is what happened when we did that. The discounts doesn't hurt, right? And some of them can be significant. The education doesn't hurt, but like you mentioned, you can get that from CEDIA, you can get that from Infocom, you can get that from the manufacturers. I think really what it comes down to is the peer-to-peer stuff. And 100 years ago, when we all had listservs, right? We could be on that. And for those young kids out there, listservs were basically it's a giant email list where you would subscribe to, and people would trade information back and forth. This is a version of that, right? This is a real in-person version of a chat room or a message board where folks can share ideas and share their triumphs as well as their tragedies.
Now, because it's regionalized, one of the things that always concerns me is what happens when you have that young up-and-coming dealer in whatever region he's in, and there's already a member in the 3 or 4, because there's not a ton of buying groups available. What's that younger or newer integrator to do when he can't get into these groups because there's already someone regionally there?
Well, typically those folks are entrepreneurs, and so what's an entrepreneur do when you find a problem? You create your own solution. He starts his own buying group. She starts her own buying. I mean, seriously, it's not unheard of. There are a couple of integrators. One's a residential, one's a commercial, right now that are looking at doing that exact thing, where they have a group of folks, people they've met through the industry. There's a good handful of them that can't get into buying groups for whatever reason, and they're looking at starting their own. So that is definitely within the realm of possibility.
Very good. Let's move on to our last story of the day. This comes to us from strategy.com and our good friend Ted Green. He is talking about Twist. It is a simple smart home light bulb and speaker that is kind of making a little bit of noise. As you scroll through this article, you'll see that the big difference between this and some of the other light bulb speaker combos is that this one is biologically correct, i.e. it's an LED light bulb that changes its color temperature to sync and kind of mimic the traditional light of the sun. So it's brighter in the morning, more in that 5,000 Kelvin range, and muter towards the end of the day, again getting down into the 28, 27 800 range. But it also includes a speaker. And unlike most out there, this is an AirPlay wireless speaker opposed to a traditional Bluetooth. Now, the fun thing is, of course, these are not shipping yet. They aren't, don't laugh when I say that, but they're not shipping yet. They're available in March. They come in a 2-pack at $149 or a 3-pack of the Twist speaker or a 6-pack of the Twist Lite for $399. Jeremy, is this just another expansion of IoT and devices that your average homeowner can go buy either online or on Amazon or at Home Depot or Lowe's and put in their house and, A, have controllable lights, but B, have music distributed throughout the house?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me because I've always represented the custom installation channel. And so all this IoT stuff, I have to kind of think of a different customer. And I know a couple of these people. I know these people that are gadget people. They like to be the ones that have the cool thing when the friends come over for a party and they get to show it off. And some of them are more early adopters and that sort of thing than I am. Mostly they are, because I'm a little bit like kind of a laggard when it comes to new stuff. I like to let it get second generation before I invest in it. But for a product like this, it just seems like it's a novelty in a way. I don't think it's going to be like an Alexa kind of a situation, or some of these products that just sort of come out of nowhere in a way. I do think it sounds like a better quality version of a combo light and speaker. And I like this science idea behind it. It's a cool story. I'd love to try it out. I mean, it seems like kind of interesting the way the light temperature changes throughout the day. Because I'm a big dimmer guy. I love to be able to control my lights, and especially at night, I cannot stand harsh lighting. It just drives me crazy. Anybody that's just an all-on overhead light person, I can't get along with. But
no wonder we get along so well.
He says from the shadows of his office.
Of course. Shall I dim them down?
Yeah, there you go. But so nice. But yeah, I mean, the same guy that's going to have colored bulbs that he can change for parties and sort of that sort of thing, I bet would be a customer for this type of product, even though it's not super cheap. But you think about it in terms of getting audio. It's not a bad price, I suppose.
No, not at all. Given the other wireless options out there that aren't light bulbs, I dim my lights just for you. Tim, looking at this product, we've seen these before. They continue to be talked about. Granted, I don't know if I've ever seen one in the field. Is this something that you would put in your house? Let's start it that way. Is this something that you would put in your house, or is this something that you're going to sit back and say, okay, I can control the light. I like that. That's cool. I don't trust the audio. And again, none of us have heard this, so we don't know. It may sound amazing, but chances are, because it's in a light bulb, it's not going to sound overly fantastic.
No.
What is this like? Is this just, as Jeremy said, is this just something that the early adopters, the gadget guys, are going to play with? Or is there hope that this type of product or this product category could become a true part of an actual integration system?
Okay. Could it? Yes. Will it? Probably not. And here's why. You have so many products out there that do something similar to this, wireless audio. Right, let's be honest what it is. It's a wireless speaker. Okay. Mm-hmm. I cannot imagine the fidelity of this. And yes, I'm going to go to the quality of the speaker immediately. I cannot imagine that the fidelity of this speaker is anything to write home about. In a home, even in distributed audio in homes, that's one of the check boxes, right? It's got to sound good, or at least sound better than a AM radio from 1970s. I guess so. I have no idea what the dynamic range of this thing is, and I cannot imagine it's very good. In offices, you can get away with a little bit less quality. In classrooms, even less. In the home, though, and everything that you and Jeremy and Richie Fregosa and everybody that lives and breathes this stuff on a daily basis, the home is very personal. People spend a lot of money, they spend a lot of time, and they want the quality. And I cannot imagine that the speaker quality of this is very good. I'll be interested to see what happens in March when it says it ships. Sure, I'll spend the $150 to get one and try it out. But I do not see this specific product. If the quality is there, yeah, sure. It's something that you guys could use to distribute throughout the homes. My issues, though, when it comes to integrating, is control. And yes, that's my bread and butter. I'm a programmer. That's where I go back to. But that is part of an integrated system, is the ability to control it, the ability to send various pieces of audio to it. And so I don't see anything like this happening on an integrated, like your question was, integrated system. Mm-hmm. One-offs, sure. College dorms, knock yourself out, right? Give your kid as she goes off to college a pack of these, and she could stream her iPhone to it.
There will be nowhere near enough bass for a college dorm. Let's be honest.
This and a wireless sub. I don't know.
Wireless. Very good. Now, do we care at all that it has, as they're calling it, a bioadaptive or biologically correct LED lighting spectrum? Is that something? Because we talked about this on a previous show with the guys from Josh AI. That is something that has been making noise in the extreme high-end market. At $100 and something, do we put any faith in this product's ability to do that? Jeremy?
I don't know enough about it to know what the price point needs to be honest. I think from a early, trial kind of opportunity, if I don't know much about it and I'm kind of in the trade, your average consumer is going to just go, whoa, I've never heard of this at all. Let me try this out. This sounds pretty cool. Or out of Christmas ideas, I'm going to get this, this year for gadget uncle or dad or whatever. But I think, to me, the speaker part of it is less interesting than the biological lighting thing, just because I know way more about the audio stuff than I knew about this other thing. I think we're giving people too much credit on audio quality, to be honest. I think that they're willing to put up with a lot more. I have an Echo that, my wife goes to because she's got it connected to her app on her phone, and she's more comfortable with it than our distributed audio system. And our distributed audio system goes offline from time to time, and it's just like, rather than reboot the system, I'm going to just go to here. And I cannot stand that single speaker, as good a quality as they make it, which they do for a mass market product. Just that single little speaker on a counter just drives me crazy. Like that directed sound kind of thing. It's, when I know what it sounds like when it's in every room and it's distributed and all that. And this is going to be several point sources. Theoretically, you put multiple bulbs in the ceiling and you can kind of mimic it. It may rock somebody's world that they can have more than one speaker in their ceiling and they didn't have to cut a hole. They don't even know probably what an in-ceiling speaker is.
Right.
Or they know it just from a retail outlet or something. But I don't know about the quality of the light. I would like to try it out. I'd like to see what that's like. And I think that some people would. I don't see this kind of taking the market by storm by any means.
Very good. Tim, I'll give you the last word. On the lighting side of it, are we to the point where we really don't care? As long as the LED mostly functions, we're happy with it?
I'm going to agree with Jeremy on the part that I think that the average consumer doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. Some of this is education of the consumer by the integrators, right? This is why you need this. I mean, you're right. We talked about bioadaptive lighting a couple weeks ago with the guys at Josh AI. You made some really good points. I had no idea about it until we did that story. Very interesting, right? Mimicking the suns and the circadian rhythms, and making sure that all that is in line, and making yourself feel good, and increasing increasing the temperatures during the winter months when we have less sunlight, and making yourself feel good. And I learned something during that episode. Believe it or not.
It's because I hosted it.
I know, it's crazy, and it's because Matt's a huge lighting guy. So I think if it is important, it's going to become important because of the education of the customer from the integrator. Now, whether or not if this is what this thing does, sure. Then you bring it. You buy a 6-pack, you bring it into the client's home, you put it into a fixture, and you say, okay, this is what it does, and look at the different temperatures, and look at the different things that it can do. And by the way, this is why this is important, right? So it comes back to the client, and actually it comes back to the client. And the crazy thing is, this may end up being an IoT device. Sure, awesome, groovy. It goes back to the conversation that we had with Mitch Klein at CEDIA this year, and I will harp on this probably until I stop doing this. But the whole "do it with me" movement, right? You got do it for me. You have do it yourself, DIY, and this middle ground. And I think this product is uniquely there. Do it with me, where they may pick this up and say, "Hey, this is cool," and then you have Matt Scott or Stephen Bronner or Rich Fregosa coming by and saying, "This is why it's cool. This is why it's important. This is why you want it. And oh yeah, I can help you integrate it into your whole system."
Very, very good. All right, gentlemen, that kind of does it for today. Thanks again for joining us. Jeremy, where can people connect with you?
Well, probably our website, residentialsystems.com, would be the best place. And I'm on Twitter too, Resi Editor, that thing. But Twitter, I'm ready to.
You hanging it up on Twitter? You've had it?
Yeah, I got so many issues. They're bigger than social media.
Fantastic. Tim, thanks for joining in, my friend. Where can people connect with you?
My Twitter is TD Albright, Tim David Albright. At this point, I'm celebrating the fact that the Bears no longer have Jay Cutler as a quarterback, and celebrating our first annual AVNation Awards, which the voting is live now. So.
Yeah, good plug, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
You can go by the website to find that out. But again, thanks for joining us. For myself, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott. I don't have any issues with Twitter. I can make it work.
Cowboys lost last night, though.
Yeah, I know. Did they lose, or did they? Because they didn't get beaten. They
lost. Themselves. You know what? At the end of the day, it's an L in the column. That's all I know.
It's definitely an L in the column. Yes, sir.
I just was going to say, you live in Canada. You don't have the same issues with Twitter.
No, but we got a lot of snow last night, and the Moose are not running fast enough to keep our internet going. So it's been rough. But again, you can follow me, Matt D. Scott, on Twitter or pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please stop by avnation.tv. You'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows that we have. When you stop by the site, please make sure you check out our underwriters. You'll find them in the left-hand tab or up in the menu. We are extremely thankful for their support, and we ask that you support them as well. Thank you for watching this week's episode of ResiWeek.